take it to them. It says, this mini prayer shawl is a symbol of God's grace, peace, and love. Keep it in your pocket. Reach in and touch it when you are lonely or need comfort. Let it remind you of God's presence, for you are never alone. And I've given out lots and lots of these to folks. I'm going to read the 23rd Psalm, and following that, we may have a couple of people come up to share some remembrances. Now the psalm that brings comfort to so many. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. And if we had someone who wanted to speak, they can come up now. Is Rob here? On the way.
Somehow it took longer to do that than the years in the past. I've got two things to read. One from a classmate of mine who is also one of the many adoptees from the Hales, Ira Woodard, class of 75. He said, I would like to write a whole book about Mama Hale, so I'll keep this pretty short. Enjoy Alumni Weekend and be safe. I am sorry I'm not able to be with my brothers and sisters today to celebrate the life of Mama Hale. But one of the main things she always taught us was the importance of family. I'm in LaGrange, Georgia, celebrating the 5th birthday of my granddaughter, Hazel. Hazel is a lot like Mama in that she absolutely loves animals. Right now she has 11 chicks, and she calls them her babies. I can't wait to sit down and talk to her about her great-grandmama Hale and the influence she had on her papa. I think back on the many evenings with Mama, just sitting and talking about anything and everything. We had so many differing opinions. It's just true. She just opened my eyes to a whole different world that I was used to seeing. She and Doc did so much to raise so many of their children from the other mothers that turned out to be good people. I'm just curious, how many other adoptees have we got in here? Case in point. All right. The year Ira was out of school, he became very close. He would come up on weekends just to visit. Before he went on campus for the events, he would go and visit the Hales at their chalet, as he called it. And they would sit down and talk. And it would always come back to the one thing: get your butt back in school. That was her advice. And he eventually took it and went back. I have so many fond memories of Doc and Mama, but one that stands out most about Mama is one freezing winter. There was about 3 feet of snow in Gainesville, and Nino, or Mama, called him and said, hey, I'm concerned about my food in the freezer. The dog bowls downstairs are even freezing. He said, Mama, think about what you just said. If the dog bowls are freezing down there and the freezer's down there, you don't have to. She goes, good point. God love her. I just thank God that I was able to spend a few days with Mel and her in the hospital before she passed. She will always be known to light up the room and full of spunk and loving life. And also giving it to the nurses. Sing that. I love you, Mama. You and Doc get ready. I'll be home soon. That was from Ira Woodard. All right, I got a few things here too. I was adopted by the Hales unofficially in 73. That was my year when I came up to Young Harris. I would have had to drop out of school if it wasn't for the Hales. Doc and Mama found some options for me to utilize. And so I moved in and lived with them for that summer and was able to finish my time at Young Harris. That summer I lived with the Hales was a virtual turning point for me. The Wisdom and Sage was their forte. They were always ready to listen and to provide unfiltered guidance. And Nino was most eloquent with her Mountainese expressions and colloquialisms. Doc, with his candor and pun mastery, made them a perfect match for each other. One evening, after a long day of working out on a bridge that we were building in the creek in front of their house, Doc and I were sitting adjacent to the footbridge, and he said, we need some cool libation. And if you've ever been around Doc, you understand what I'm going to say. He would lean over his shoulder and go, Barbara! Not knowing, I was facing the house and I could see Mama coming down with 2 cold beers. He did not see her coming down. He rolled over and went, Barbara! And she said, Jimmy! You don't have to yell, I'm right here. Doc jumped 6 inches off that chair. That was really neat. So, I'm not sure, but today in heaven, I'm sure Nino called, Jimmy? And Doc answered, Barbara, you don't have to yell up here. We'll be there soon. What a sweet lady. Oh, Josh knows this, and Melanie knows this too. If you've ever done a work project with Doc, and you're really comfortable and thought you're at the finish, he'd go, just one more thing. And 90 minutes later, then you could go get your beer.
I'm not on the program, but I've never let that stop me. Right, okay.
Please get the microphone.
Oh, here we go. I'm not on the program, but I never let that stop me. I'm Lydia Sartain. I grew up in Blairsville and came to Young Harris College begrudgingly. I didn't want to come here, but my father said I could go anywhere I wanted to, but he'd send us check to Young Harris College. So here I came. Met Melanie, but then I became a Phi Delta and met Mama Hale. Now, she was, of course, a mother to Melanie and her sister Valerie, but she was mama to lots of us. As has been said, hundreds, if not thousands of people benefited from Mama Hale. Now, when I came to Young Harris, as I say, I was not here voluntarily, and so I may have carried a little bit of a chip on my shoulder from time to time, but I certainly was not serious about anything. And being in Phi Delta then, I was elected vice president, and my roommate, Meg McElroy, was president. So we had to give the little talk in the fall for the recruits to try to get young women to join Phi Delta. So it was my turn to get up to speak, and I spoke for a little while. And then I just bounced off that stage and bounced right into Mama Hale. And she said, Lydia, you're going to need to work on that speaking ability. And I was like, what? And that was the first time anybody had pointed out to me that I may have said, like, I think, maybe 100 or more times. It was terrible. But the way she told me that was advice that I took to heart. I doubt she would have thought back in that day, Melanie, that I would make a lawyer. But I knew that I needed to work on being able to speak publicly. And I got that from Mama Hale, and I listened to her. And then as I advanced through my studies and career, I took all of the classes I could and concentrated on trying to speak better, more effectively, try to get rid of at least a few of the ums. And I know that some of my friends back there in the very back think that perhaps I should continue that journey of practicing and learning. But I just don't think I would have had the career I've had if I hadn't had that nudge from Mama Hale. And I'm sure that there are many, many people. And Dr. Hale. I mean, I left Blairsville to go to Europe with Dr. Hale. I do not have time today to tell any of those stories, but those folks meant a lot to me, Melanie, and you know it. So I'm just pleased to be here to celebrate Mama Hale.
Well, I'm not on the program either, but that never has stopped me. I just have known Barbara for 35 years. And when I first came to Mountain Regional Library, she was one of the very first people that I met. And she came into the library, and we had a nice conversation. I helped her pick out some books. We talked, and before she left, she said, "I think you'll do." And I did for 30 years, and we remained friends. Barbara was a member of Friends of the Library. She was part of the starting of Friends of the Library. She and Doris Tilley were instrumental in getting it started and supported it every step of the way. She and Dr. Hale got Book Bunch started, and that's been enjoyed by so many people. And I was in Delta Kappa Gamma, Retired Educators, Nifty Needles, all these things with her. And she just had a genius for organizing, and even though she could be acerbic, I loved that directness that she had and how she could hone in on a problem and help you see something that you didn't see yourself. And I just appreciated her honest appraisal of people. I love to have her on a search committee because she had a highly tuned BS radar. And again, I enjoyed working with her. Sometimes, and I told her this, and I never hid it from her. Sometimes she would say something, and I would literally roll my eyes and say, "Barbara." And so I couldn't believe she said that out loud. But I loved her. She was a great friend. I'm going to really miss her. She was the heart and soul of Nifty Needles, kept us going, and I hope that we can continue to enhance her legacy in that regard. But Mel, I know this is heartbreaking for you, and we're just, as I say, we're really going to miss her. But thank you for the opportunity of just saying, thank you, Barbara. I know you're organizing things in heaven. It's going to be better when we get there. Thank you.
Well, if it hadn't been for Doc and Mama Hale, I might be getting out of prison about today. There are no telling how many times that she absolutely chewed me out down to the bone. And anytime I was in trouble, and Rob was involved with this too, if it was during the summertime, we were forced to shell peas, snap beans, work the garden, whatever we had to do to make our penance. And she and Doc absolutely loved them both, but she was definitely the disciplinarian of that duo. Kind of a playground sense of justice, I would describe it. But she was very kind and loving, but if you didn't want to hear an answer, you better not ask her, because she was absolutely brutally honest, and I absolutely loved her for that. Got to spend some very good time with her these last days, and it was absolutely a blessing. I was absolutely blessed to have Doc and Mama Hale in my life. They basically took me under their wing. I can't think of how many nights that I spent up in that little small part of the A-frame up there sleeping on the floor, wrapped up in a blanket, and was tickled to death to get there because I felt like absolute family. My parents absolutely loved them because they knew that those two were looking after me up here and would relay any shenanigans that I needed to have even more discipline about. But can't think enough of the impact that they had on my lives and so many people that I see here. It was just an absolute blessing.
This up. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Brittany. I am Nino's youngest grandchild, the favorite. No, I'm just kidding. So I actually wrote this, what I'm about to say, I wrote this, I think it was the night that my mom called me to let me know that Nino was going into hospice, which I was like, God, Nino, come on now. But yeah, I just started speaking from the heart, and it just stuck, and so here we go. This is a letter to Nino. I don't even know where to start. You are the most amazing, but simultaneously the most difficult person to know and deal with. My Lord. You were smart, unbelievably kind, stubborn, patient, wise, and the most resilient person I've ever known or met. You had a way to make someone feel so loved, but also question absolutely everything about themselves, but in the best way. You challenged people. My goodness. You sought out the best version of people, encouraging them to find their truest and best self. You loved the simple things in life, soup and salad and bread and Dr. Seuss, cats and dogs, knitting, reading, all of those things. And then most importantly, very simple but also difficult man, my grandfather, Dr. James Hale. You dedicated 70 years of marriage to a man that might have been more stubborn than you, and for that alone, I commend you. Also, happy anniversary. Their birthday, or anniversary was just this past week. But the funniest part, you always got your way, with Granddad especially. You were the perfect example of what womanhood is. You were an educator, a scholar, a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, a legacy. You did everything all the women in your footsteps hope to attain and become, even if it's at 25% of the capacity. I'm so blessed to have known you, to laugh with you, be sarcastic with you, take care of you. I wish I could have been here more often, and I find it so crazy that the universe sent me to Europe and gave me a whole family there, a place that you and Grandad loved and cherished so much. I know you and Grandad are so proud. I know I should have hugged you a little tighter and a little longer. I know I should have paid attention all those times you wanted to teach me to knit and crochet. I'm regretting that now. I know I shouldn't have complained about carrying your 50-pound bags of dog food in from your trunk. Oh my goodness. When in reality, it was to feed animals and care for animals that we really just had no business having in the first place. But we just felt the need to care for them and take them in, because that's just how we are as a family. We had a lot of animals to begin with, but you just kept bringing them in, both of them, Nino and Grandad. I know I'll never hug you again. I know you'll never hear me play on the trumpet or sing again, which I did a lot from right here. even though it made you so happy to hear those things. I'll never forget your unreasonable rules and curfews, or watching Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy with you and Granda. I think it's extremely ironic, if you guys didn't know, tonight is Pat Sajak's last night hosting the Wheel of Fortune. Very fitting, very fitting. It's like you guys coordinated that or something, you know? Also, alumni weekend, come on. I'll never forget the way that we used to email each other, or the time I pulled a prank on you and asked you how I could cook a turkey for Thanksgiving in the microwave. She was not impressed. I'll never forget you always reminding us about how you would get dental work and you would never need Novocaine, ever, because you had such a high pain tolerance. You crazy woman. I'll never forget bragging to everyone about how you were an 80-year-old woman still driving a manual car, just zooming around these roads. I'll never forget your purple hair. I mean, what even was that? I loved it, but I'll never forget you calling my husband Brandon the first time you met him a walking totem pole because of all of his tattoos. And I'm sorry, they rubbed off on me too a little bit. Oops. I'll never forget you correcting not only my grammar, but the family's grammar, my friend's grammar, complete strangers' grammar, or asking me how, school was going and if I still had all A's, because that was the expectation, nothing less. I'll never forget you teaching me how to give cats medicine or exactly how much food each dog had or needed at feeding time and when they were fed. And you were very detailed and meticulous. You were set in your own ways, and if it wasn't your way, there was no way. You set the highest expectations for people while simultaneously setting the example. If I could be 10% of what you were, what you've done, who you've impacted, I'd be fulfilled. I also just want to let you guys know, when I initially wrote this speech, there was a supreme amount of typos and grammatical errors. Thank you, Josh and Amanda. I was sad, about everything, not thinking straight. Maybe I had a glass of wine or two, in Nino fashion. But heaven forbid, I give a speech at Barbara Hale's memorial service with anything grammatically incorrect. So I can assure you guys, everything's good in here. This was proofread 10 plus times prior to this, and everything's good. Okay, Nino? I promise. If there's one thing I learned from my grandmother that really stuck, out of the countless things that she taught me, it's that you always keep a promise. And so for that, I promise to teach my children, your great-grandchildren, to be obedient, to be kind, to be patient, to be wise beyond their years, to be understanding, to be firm, to be independent. I promise to provide for others, to take others in when needed, to feed, to love, and to nurture, just like you. I promise to try and be half or even just a fraction of the woman that Barbara Hale was. And you're all here. You're hearing it from me now, I promise. This loss is more than a loss. It's detrimental. It's the end of an era, the end of a legacy between Dr. James Hale, and Mama. Sorry. I'm almost done. And I won't let it fade away. A promise is a promise. And Nino, I hope you can feel and see my pinky right now. I love you. And I miss you. I just know that you and Dad are having the best time drinking wine and beer with your animals and my precious Aunt Valerie. And I can't wait to see you both again. Thank you for everything.